Good evening and welcome to the Town of Douglas Conservation Commission meeting for Monday, April 6, 2026. This meeting is being recorded and broadcasted by Local Access Programming with remote participation available as provided on our agenda. Is there anyone here recording tonight's meeting? I hereby call the meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Mark Mungem is excused, and roll call.
Brendan Doyle.
Kate Rowland.
Mike Greco.
Jim Foran. All right, we'll just push the meeting minutes to the end. So, old business, NOI for DP number 143-1130, public hearing, continued notice of intent for Linda and Douglas Ward for 48 Shady Lane, single-family home, map 148, lot 5.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mark Allen with Allen Engineering Associates, here with folks, Doug and Linda Ward, the owners and applicants. Tom Schutz, Goddard Consulting, is in attendance as well.
Okay.
Quite the gang.
We have to do to share.
So it has been about a month since we've been before you, so we kind of want to recap a little bit and then kind of get into the meat and potatoes of where we are tonight. So I think all of you have a packet from Jan Kuchar. Is that correct, with all the information? Okay. I do have one additional handout for you tonight that I'll give to everyone's just going to pass them around for you.
Oops. Right. Cow.
Okay.
Buy me off, they know. I'll take one.
One more?
Yep.
Yep.
You got one of these?
Thank you.
So the last time we were here in attendance, we had asked for a continuance. So I'm going to back up one meeting before that. We were ready to give you some additional information back based on previous comments. At that time, a couple of items that we wanted to share with the commission were the arborist letter. So the arborist letter was submitted 2 meetings ago, and what the arborist letter basically wanted to confirm and explain is that a series of trees are going to be taken down by inside the 25-foot no disturb zone because they are dangerous, pose a public health threat, and then the remaining trees are within the limit of work anyway. So there are 4 of the trees that we've now labeled on the plan you have in front of you as to be removed, and those 4 trees are shown in the 0 to 25-foot setback. So we provided an arborist letter to explain why those 4 were coming down. Other items added to the plan 2 meetings ago were to show that activity has been occurring at the camp over the years. We've added such items as the picnic table, the swing set, the fire pit, just to kind of show historical uses. We also gave to the commission, because Sam didn't have it in the file, was the letter from the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, so that you do have that. And again, the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife indicated that this project will not have an adverse effect on the area indicated on their maps. So that was to recap 2 meetings ago when we were here and asked for the continuance. Since the continuance, we have retained Tom Schutz from Goddard Consulting. It came to our attention that we needed a little more definition of the bordering vegetated wetland and the on-site wetlands relative to White Reservoir, and if anything were to change on the plan, I didn't want to misrepresent anything at the last hearing. So I will turn it over to Tom eventually, but Tom was retained. He did flag the edge of the bank. So nothing of substance changed from what we had assumed all along. All along the edge of the water, the edge of the stone wall, has been the edge of the resource area / edge of the water, high water line. And Tom's flags, A1 through A13, are shown on the revised plans, and you do have a full wetland border report from Tom as part of this application in the last 4 weeks. We also understood that the commission asked for a legal opinion on the reading or the understanding of the the Douglas wetland regulations as it pertains to floodplain. We did hear back, or at least I was forwarded an email from town council, and happy to say is we agree with what town council basically rendered as they opined on their reading of your wetland bylaw. What they opined on was that in addition to any wetland resources outlaid by the Wetlands Protection Act through Mass DEP, Douglas also includes some other resources and has other 100-foot buffer zones to those resources, one of which is the FEMA floodplain. And we never, that was never in dispute, so we kind of agree with that. We've been showing it. It was asked to be shown. The one change that you'll see before you tonight, and I kind of want to highlight in orange, is we have superimposed the FEMA flood line on the site plan in this location in orange, and then we added the 100-foot buffer zone to that in orange. I kind of want to show that to you tonight. And where that 100-foot floodplain came from is the firm map that's in your packet as well. This is a full-scale version, 1 inch equals 500, that the National Flood Insurance Agency issues, and this entire Whiten Reservoir is designated as a Zone A. So it's prone to flooding, and by the definition, in 100 years, it is basically there's a 1% chance that it'll flood. It doesn't have an elevation associated with it. Other panels have a zones AE, and that means that a flood study has been done and topographic contours have been done, and exact measurements can be taken and shown on the ground as to where that flood line is. That's not the case with the Whiten Reservoir. It is basically a line around the reservoir that just says this could flood, but the study has not been done. So our question, or at least the question that raised by your consultants, Sam and Brandon, were, does this commission hold the horizontal setbacks for no touch and no build to the floodplain, or is it to the wetlands? So what we've gone ahead and done is we've shown that this commission over the last 20 plus years that I've been working in town has never used the floodplain as a horizontal setback. It's always been to the edge of the water, edge of the wetlands. And we do that. Part of that handout that I just gave you shows 12 other projects along Whiten Reservoir that's never happened before. So I'm going to have Tom kind of explain a little bit further when we get a little bit further along. And just sort of elaborate on what that 100-year floodplain is. That 100-year floodplain is once in a century. Water rises to a level that floods people's homes and second floors, and the biggest tornado you've ever seen in a century. That water is over the banks of the Mumford River, over the banks of the West River, and it's just spilled out all over Church Street, all over downtown. And that water level gets traced onto these firm maps. So that, correctly by this commission, has never been the standard to which you hold a 25-foot no build or a 50-foot no structure. So it's a resource. We totally agree with town council, and it should be on every plan. It hasn't been throughout the years, but it should be. And we recognize that had any work been done within 100 feet of that floodplain, this commission has jurisdiction over it. But our reading and your interpretation over the decades has been the BVW at the edge of the physical water holds that 25 and 50-foot no disturb and no build. So Tom also put together a memorandum of his findings. I do want to say, once we complete the process, our interpretation, our summary will be, even though the floodplain question came up, we do believe that we've addressed it in such ways that we have overcome the burden in the bylaw that says we have to show that we have done everything we can to protect the nearby resources. And by the measures that are on this site plan, we have shown that this project has stormwater infiltration system to mitigate stormwater runoff. It has perimeter stone trenches to mitigate stormwater runoff. It has minimized the building footprint over the time that we've applied. The building has shrunk. We have reduced the steep slope on the property with some short retaining walls. We have minimized the limit of work to keep as much as the work out of the 25-foot no disturb. In fact, the one area that has a former well pump area is going to be brought back to its natural condition. We've employed sediment and erosion control measures so as to not have anything spill over. We have project phasing as asked by the consultant, and we've proposed some plantings in the buffer zone. So we believe that this project meets the intent of your bylaw without the review of the floodplain, but also it meets the intent of your bylaw with the floodplain. So I want to turn it over to Tom just to give his BVW explanation and his findings of similar filings.
Yeah, I just want to jump in real quick before we turn to Tom. Doug Ward, applicant, along with my wife Linda. Proposed home is approximately 14 feet above the elevation of the nearby flood zone, which is located entirely outside the proposed limit of work. So, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Tom Schutz from Goddard Consulting. It's been a while since I've been back in front of you, so it's good to see everybody again. Some new faces since the last time I've been here. I was brought onto the project to flag the limits of the wetland resource areas in the site. Those flags were the bank of the Whitten Reservoir, which can be seen being highlighted by Mark right there. It was 13 flags total on the bank that is essentially demarcated by the stone wall, but then also some steep erosion that is coming up to where potentially during flooding some soil was removed, and now it's just a steep drop off to the edge of the pond. So the plan has been the plan has been updated to include those flags. That's shown in pink. I did check up gradient of the bank as well to see if there was any hydric soils or a dominance of wetland species. It is my opinion there is no additional BVW above the bank of the Whitten Reservoir. There are some wetland indicator species, however there wasn't a hydric soil present, and as we know in Massachusetts we need to have 3 criteria: a hydric soil, a dominance of wetland species, and then also a hydrologic indicator, 2 of which were not present, the hydrologic indicator and then also the hydric soil. So we can't have a BVW in this location, and just thus the bank of the pond is the only resource area along with the FEMA flood zone. So I then also requested a bunch of old order of conditions from sites that were on Shady Lane, and those are shown here in red dots. There is a total of 6 or 7 of them, starting at 12 Shady Lane, moving up to, I believe, 40 Shady Lane, and then also an additional one on Laurel Glades Road, which is just to the north, but still on the same side of the pond itself. This was all included in the memo, and then all the approved site plans were included in the memo as well, which is going to be what this packet is. So in my memo, we go over what the commission has approved on the site plan, what has been shown as a resource area, especially in concerns with the flood zones and what the buffer zones are going to be related to. So if we want to turn to the first page of these plans were from between 20 to as recent as a couple of years ago to show what the common practice of the commission has been. The first one is going to be Shady Lane, which is the furthest to the east. Mark's pointing it out right there. I'll just give a brief summary for each of these here. The project doesn't matter as much as what the resource area and buffer zone is shown. So on this project, the bank of the Whitten Reservoir was the outstanding resource on the site itself. That was delineated with the ordinary high water line, no wetland flags actually physically present in the field. The FEMA line isn't even shown on this site plan here, despite it being depicted on the FEMA Fermite map on the site in the location of the dock and the high water line. The 50 and 100-foot buffer zones are only shown to the bank of the pond. There's not even a buffer zone shown to any FEMA line. There is no FEMA line shown on this plan, so this one is in alignment with our project. Moving on to the next page. Oops. We have 14 Shady Lane. This is also delineated using the ordinary high water line of the pond itself, no wetland flags. This one, there's no flood zone present at all either. There's only a 50 and 100-foot buffer zone depicted to the bank of the pond itself. No FEMA line, no additional buffers. Next plan. This is 16 Shady Lane. Similarly, this was flagged using the edge of the water, which is shown as a stone retaining wall on the site plan itself. No FEMA line shown, no additional buffer zone, only the 50-foot buffer zone to the bank of pond, and then also the 100-foot buffer zone to bank of pond. No FEMA map shown, or no FEMA line shown, despite it being mapped within the flood zone on the most recent map. Moving on to 22 Shady Lane. Here we have a little bit of a difference on this plan. This one, we do in fact have the 100-year flood zone depicted. If you look on the top left corner of the site, it borders the edge of the retaining wall there and kind of follows that same line, but maybe down a little bit in some areas closest to the beach. This area is also the bank of pond, and we also have an upgrading resource area, that being bordering vegetated wetland. The 100 or the 50-foot buffer zone and 100-foot buffer zone are only shown to the bank of pond and the 100 or in the bordering vegetated wetland. There's no additional buffer zones to the FEMA flood zone, and that's very important on this one specifically because it is depicted on there. We don't even have a 100-foot buffer zone to the FEMA flood zone, which we're showing on our plan. Moving on. This is 24 Shady Lane. Similarly to the past ones, we have the bank of the Whitten Reservoir delineated using the ordinary high water of a large stone retaining wall. In this case, 25, 50, and 100-foot buffer zone are depicted only off of the bank of the pond itself. No flood zone actually shown, no additional buffer zone shown. And then this is the final plan in the packet. This is 29 Laura Glades Road, and I think this plan to me is the most compelling evidence showing that there is no additional buffer zones shown from or as common practice from the commission, that there's no additional buffer zones to the FEMA flood zone. So you can see that we have the bank of the Whitten Reservoir shown. We also then, upgrading of that, have the approximate flood zone limit depicted. From there, there's no additional buffer zones to the FEMA flood zone. There's only a buffer zone to the bank of the reservoir. I think this is definitely the most compelling because we can't see an additional buffer zone, not even a 100-foot buffer zone, which our project is showing clearly. And we're following the bylaw in that case. But in my mind, based on all of these file reviews, it's been the common practice of the commission to not depict any 25 or 50-foot buffer zone to the FEMA flood zone. In most cases, the flood zone on Whitten Reservoir isn't even shown on any of these site plans, nor does it have the 100-foot buffer zone associated with it. So I think that concludes my file review and memo. I'll turn it back over to Mark now to let him conclude. But if you have any questions for me on any of that delineation or my memo or file review, I'd be happy to answer them after Mark's completed.
Yeah, so I would just also like to jump in again and say, appreciate all that great work. There's not a historical establishment of buffer zone, a no-build, a no-disturb buffer zone with respect to FEMA Flood Zone A as there is with the edge of wetlands in town. However, we acknowledge the Commission's jurisdiction to regulate the wetlands and make sure those wetlands are protected, and that's what we're doing here. So back to Mark.
Yep. So just to kind of follow along that cover sheet to that packet, Allen Engineering has been associated with another handful of applications around the Whitten Reservoir, most notably 90 Island Road, which is right out here in the peninsula, 35 Wallace Street, 278 Northwest Main, and 284 Northwest Main. None of those projects also had any horizontal setback to the FEMA line. It's always been to the edge of the water. So I'm just going to want to reiterate that. Other projects that we looked into, too, that had defined Zone A's or AEs were properties that had, we had done with Gilboa Lane, Martin Road. Those definitely had Zone AEs with defined contours, and there were never any, horizontal setbacks to that flood zone resource. So, in conclusion, I'd like to say we don't disagree with Town Council's legal opinion. You do have an added layer of protection from the flood zone. You do have a 100-foot buffer zone, and that jurisdiction lies with this commission before you. But we feel as if we've met all of the mitigating measures to better the natural environment near the waterfront. So with that, I'll turn it over to commission. Questions for the commission?
Thank you. So that was a good presentation. I appreciate all the work that you guys have done into this. I don't disagree. I mean, it's very obvious that in the past, this commission has not enforced any buffer zone to the flood zone. They have not enforced any setbacks to the flood zone as well. So that is very evident. I'm going off of my interpretation of the bylaw and Brandon's interpretation of the bylaw and Town Council's interpretation of the bylaw. So in my interpretation of it, I do believe that this does grant a 25-foot setback of no touch and a 50-foot no build. Now they've shown the 100-foot buffer zone from it, which is great. Again, I understand that this has not been enforced in the past. I'm simply bringing to you what I believe and what Brandon believes and what Town Council believes that your bylaw states. So, with that being said, there is the ability for the applicant to overcome the presumptions. So when we're building within 25 feet of a resource area, we're presuming that it may alter that resource area in some type of way. So the applicant does have the ability to demonstrate to you why they feel that this is not going to have any adverse impacts to the resource area. And in your bylaw, you're able to vote on that and say, okay, they've proved to us that they've overcome the presumptions, and we agree that this will not have adverse impacts to the resource area. So I think that is something to highly take into consideration. Just to kind of go on a side tangent, I know there are some trees getting taken out, like you guys said, within the 25-foot no touch, which I do. Are you stumping those trees?
No.
Okay.
No. It's in the letter.
So the stumps are going to be left?
Yes.
Do you have, and this is up to what you guys feel comfortable, do you have any opposition to doing some shrub plantings in place of those? That's just something that I'm, because technically they are in the 25-foot no disturb there. They're not stumping, which is good, but, that's something I would offer up for the commission's consideration, maybe a couple shrub plantings just in their place of losing those larger trees. I have no disagreements with Tom's line that he's flagged out, but really, those are really my main comments here. That's how I'm interpreting the bylaw. That's how Brandon's interpreting the bylaw. It's, as I've said before, moving forward, I think the commission should have some type of discussion as to, okay, are we interpreting it as we would like to enforce this 25-foot no touch, 50-foot no build from the flood zone? Again, I'm taking what Town Council gave me from what I'm interpreting it. That's how I feel that it should be. So, those are really my comments on it. I don't have any other issues with it besides maybe having them do some plantings. That's really what I have at the moment. If you have any questions, I can try to answer them to the best I can.
So why would we change now compared to what has been shown in the past?
You don't have to. And, to me, I don't know what it was. I wasn't here before. It could have been maybe just not reading it, turning the other way, not interpreting it the same way potentially, maybe not even knowing that that was part of the bylaw, but how I'm reading it is bordering land subject to flooding is a protected resource area that receives a 100-foot buffer zone, and any residential activity within the 100-foot buffer zone gets a 25-foot setback. And there's a whole table in your bylaw that shows this type of work receives this type of setback for resource areas. So that's how I'm interpreting it. And so that's what I see. Now, you can go forward and say, we think that we're going to give the flood zone a 100-foot buffer zone, but we're not interpreting the bylaw as needing a 25-foot setback, 50-foot no build. If you want to move forward with that and continue on how you've been doing it, I see it up to your interpretation, but...
If I could, through the chair, just follow up on that. The question being, why would you change it? It's a great question, because once in a century water, and again, this is a poor example, the White Reservoir, because it doesn't have an associated elevation with it. It's a blob around the lake. It doesn't have woody vegetation, doesn't have wetland, it's just a blob. Where you actually have a zone AE where they tell you the contour through the Mumford River is 269 to 270. You can actually see that, or at least plot that on a contour map, and you can avoid that area. The reason why I don't think this commission has interpreted it that way, and before Sam's and Brandon's time, is that it would be very unrealistic, almost a property taking, if you assumed that during the Great Flood of 1938, when you saw water was once here on buildings along the Mumford River, to say, you know what, that's what I'm going to hold as our level of standard. I don't want anybody to put a house within 20 or 50 feet of that mark that's 13 feet up the side wall of that house. It's just not real. It's not realistic. You go to the wetland plants, you go to the vegetation, you go to the soils, you say that's where the BVW is. Okay, I don't want to disturb the wetland in an everyday practice. I pull 25 feet, we don't touch it. We pull 50 feet, we don't put a building next to it. It'd be I think, it'd be uncommon of you to assume that you'd take a once-in-a-lifetime flood and hold distances off of that.
Is anyone, do you want to hear from the audience first, and then we can discuss, or do you want to?
Yeah, sure.
Anyone from the audience?
I've got a question.
Hold on 1 second. I have someone. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Francis Marcu, 52 Shady Lane. I'm a neighbor of the property. I have concerns that can't they put the septic tanks in a different place? Seems to me that if the water did get high, that wouldn't be a good thing to have the septic tank exposed. And if there ever was a failure, it's right next to the water. And they use an injection system to pump it up, and there's, those things are prone to failure.
Yeah, no, that was asked and answered at a previous hearing. The septic tanks are all monolithic, they're all H20 loaded, they're all watertight, and they're 50 feet off the edge of the water, which meets all the Title V, and all asked and answered, I think.
No, we did go over that before, and someone also mentioned something about if they had no water, no power, what would happen or whatever, so,
Right.
yeah.
Yep. If there's battery backup, there's a generator backup. There's 2 days of storage, even if in power failure. That gives them 2 days to call a pump truck, come and pump out the tank. So it's far better than what we...
And it's well water, right?
Correct, yes.
So if you lose the power, you're not going to have any water in the house anyways, so
Yes.
that solves that for that. Okay, anyone else? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things that come to mind, but refresh my recollection.
Yes, that's right.
My name's Henry Lane, I'm here on behalf of the immediate neighbors. A couple of things. I don't recall whether the commission has actually done a site visit out there.
I have done a site visit as the agent on behalf of the commission. I don't believe the commission themselves have been out to the site, but I have done my regular routine site visits that I would normally do to any application.
Well, on behalf of the neighbors, we think it would be worthwhile for the commission to actually take a look at the site and get a real sense of the steepness and the slope you're talking about, because we think that, people who have lived there for the last 20 or 30 years are really concerned about, the erosion and the impact of this project. And as I say, they don't believe that you're going to really get a good feel for what the site is in real life unless you actually go out and look at it. So we're going to request that the commission actually do a site visit so they can lay eyes on what's actually out there and what the result of the proposed work is really going to be. One of the concerns, of course, is the removal of the vegetation. There are significant mature trees on that site that do protect the reservoir, and I was interested in reading the letter from the arborist who suggests that there's some kind of a hazard. Well, there's only a hazard if they create a hazard. There's currently no hazard. Those trees are mature trees. There's nothing wrong with them. They protect the resource values of the reservoir. And we don't see any reason to remove them other than, we're going to strip the vegetation along the edge of the lake. To say somehow that they're a safety hazard, it just isn't realistic. And as I say, I think if you look at the slope, you're going to wonder, like we do, are those swales going to be sufficient, or are you just going to get a lot of silt into the lake? We're building a very large building on a fairly small lot. You're going to have runoff. There's no question about it. We appreciate that they're proposing some new vegetation along the edge of the property, but only after they strip it all. So you're basically going to strip the entire lot, cut down all the trees, and you're going to, replicate some of it. But we don't think that that is really sufficient. And, you're crowding this lot. You're going to end up dumping, we expect, a significant amount of runoff and the associated silt, into the lake. And when you look at, the proposal for the retaining walls, it's interesting. I was kind of looking at your own regulations, and, you have regulations regarding building, which is not defined. But in fact, you require that buildings, be set back at least 50 feet. And I don't see a distinction between, two retaining walls and a wooden wall. I mean, you're basically allowing building within, the 50-foot buffer. In this case, two retaining walls. So, I think you have a violation, right there before you even start, which needs to be addressed. And those retaining walls, again, are only there because of the steep slope. That, on the plan, they're flat. But in the real world, it's not flat. So, in our view, those retaining walls would not be allowed under your regulation. And I appreciate that in the past, you have not enforced the bylaws in the regulations the way they're written, but as I occasionally tell boards in these situations, the fact that you've made mistakes in the past does not require you to make mistakes now or in the future. Conservation Commission decisions have no precedential values, and the fact that you may have overlooked or failed to enforce those regulations doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't. We have them for a reason. The bylaws were adopted by the voters. The regulations were adopted by this board. And, if you don't like them, you change them. You don't ignore them. That's, your job is to enforce the bylaw and the regulations that were adopted. And, as I say, that's how the democratic process works. If that's not workable, you don't just say, well, we're going to ignore them. What you do is you go and you amend them. But until that's done, I think it's incumbent upon this board to be faithful to its obligation and its oaths and enforce the bylaws and the regulations the way they were written.
Just a couple of responses.
Sure.
Retaining walls are now less than 3 feet tall. In looking at the grading, we had a 4 and a 3-foot wall, neither of which meet the building quote-unquote definition. It has to be over 4 feet.
Yep.
So each of the two small walls are 36 inches or less. So that's the reason why they're within 50 feet. They're not on either side. They meet the 50 feet on either side, but in either case, we were extra cautious so as to not put them higher than 4 feet. We dropped them each a foot to make them 3 feet.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We would like to see that site visit.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, and then I follow up on that. We just pointed out about 17 different projects that this commission hasn't gone on site walks. They've relied on professionals, Sam, Brandon, myself, Tom. So it would be unusual or at least disagree with the professionals that put forth their opinions in front of you tonight.
But through the chair, that is up to your discretion if you'd like to do a site visit. You are fully able to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? No? Okay. Any comments or?
I'm comfortable not doing a site visit because we have the elevation
Yep.
lines here, and we can see that between the wetland edge and the 100-foot wetland setback, there's about a 25-foot drop to the body of water. So it is steep, but I don't think that I don't need personally to do a visit. I guess my concern is that the 100-year flood has tended to become more frequent in the past few years, or not in the past few years, but in recent past, it seems like there's been a lot more flooding, not just 100-year flood, but the flooding that we've had has been more significant.
Substantial, yeah.
And the examples that were provided, which were really, they were a lot in detail, and we appreciate it. They're all from between 2004 and 2022. There was one from 2022 and one from 2020.
One from 19, I
One
think.
from 19. So they span, the past 20 years, like Mark, right?
Yeah.
Like Mark said. But I guess I don't think any of us were on the commission during those times, and I personally am hesitant about approving just because we have approved it before, and I tend to agree with Sam, and I would be open to talking through that though. And I agree, great presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Just to add to your comment or question, just know that this floodplain that's produced by the National Institute of Insurance, there is no defined elevation out there, so it's difficult. Even if you wanted to apply a buffer zone to it, it's not really known. In fact, when you blow this scale up and we put it on our plan, this orange line has about an 8-foot vertical difference between it. So it's really just a blob on a plan that says, hey, you know what? This is a flood-controlled body of water, and it may flood in a 100-year storm. So we recognize it as a resource, and the way the Wetlands Protection Act mitigates any work within it, and we're proposing no work within it. If you were to actually fill in a floodplain, you have to scoop out an area of equal volume in an equal area so as to compensate that floodplain. That's something we're not even proposing because we're 14 feet above it anyway. So we're not doing anything to that imaginary line that surrounds the lake.
Through the chair.
Yes.
So, Brandon, actually, we were talking about Whiten Reservoir, and I believe it's a dam, which is a controlled dam, which I believe is at 596 point something. I had the number. So, from talking to Brandon, that flood elevation, given that it's a controlled area, it can't necessarily go I don't think it can go any higher than that, but that's the elevation, this 596.6, I believe that's what it is. I can get it from Brandon again. But in this case, and when I'm looking at the contours, it looks like this flood zone, did you guys just overlap it with what you have?
Yeah, we took that exact overlay. You can kind of see it here. And the width of the pen is about 20 feet wide, so it's really a gross exaggeration of what the floodplain puts out. And then again, it's just to say, this could flood. And being a dam-controlled water body, In the event of a flood, they may have the ability to lower that dam elevation. So really, this single-family house has no impact on this floodplain area. We're very confident. A, because it's floodplain control. It's flood controlled at the dam. And an official study, although the dam elevation may be 596.6, again, that's still 14 feet below where we're working, but we're saying that in the event of a 100-year storm, that could actually be lowered and still further not impact the development.
Which it could, but I guess the premise of why I'm saying it is because you do have an elevation with this. So if you want to base it off of, if it's a zone A and doesn't have an elevation, we don't really know. You do have an elevation with this technically. If you had an AE zone with an elevation, you do have an elevation with that to base your 100-foot buffer zone off of that.
If I could just add to that, Sam. When the government does the studies to put those contour elevations to those flood zone AEs, they actually run hydraulic models through the rivers. They don't just take the limiting dam factor. They actually import whatever 9-10 inch storm in a 24-hour period, and then they assume that the flood rises, and they've taken historical photographs of where the flood goes to. So it's a combination of science, math, running hydrology calculations, and assigning an elevation. So it's not just simply picking a number off of a dam.
I just got a question, right?
Can you just, your name and your...
Jim Tessino, GBI 14 West Street. I get the floodplain, but like you gotta think about what the purpose of the floodplain is, right? It's to protect property and life and prevent volume in. Those are the three things. It's never going to be to protect a resource. It's to protect life in property. That's why the federal government spends so much money on these panels. It has nothing to do with protecting a resource or even mitigating the flood. So, all over the country, I work in places that actually have floods, where we're using those elevations either to keep all of the living floors above that elevation or preventing fill of the flood area, not to reduce capacity. It's not about protecting a species, a plant, or an environment. It's just those two things. So I get the science is right and your point is right, but the purpose of the regulation is where you need to see what you're trying to protect. You're trying to protect life and property, not any type of vegetation or other resources. I just think you're off track. I mean, you're saying I see two different things.
Sure.
So on that subject then, what do you do with all the other houses that are now violating what we're talking about?
Well, I would suggest that their first floor living is above the floodplain line, so you've accomplished what you needed to accomplish. You protected life and property.
It has.
On all of the other houses?
On all of them, because, I'm familiar with the area. Maybe at Laurel Glades a little bit, you get pretty close to that floodplain, but the breach is the top of the wall, not the dam. So I think, by accident, I don't think you put a lot of thought into it, apparently, by listening to the consultant, but you did. You made sure you protected life and property. That's what the purpose is, in my opinion.
And to answer are you in a butter, sir?
Absolutely not. I just want to get on to the next thing.
Okay.
So we can.
All right. Just want to know. I just want to see what your point is.
Yeah.
To your point, not only our first floor elevation, but the basement elevation is 14 feet above this flood line. So to his point, we have taken that into account. There's no fill and there's no living space at or below the floodplain. We're so far high above it, we've met both of those conditions.
Which through the chair is not what's being argued here. I mean, we're like, the buffer is what we're speaking of. They're not proposing any work within the flood zone for this application. So that, just to be clear, you're fully aware of that.
And then to kind of come around full circle is just to basically say, I think we can all agree that work has been done in buffer zones in the past. Work has been done in wetlands and have been replicated. This particular application is no different than the 17 that we put before you tonight. We have extensive stormwater controls, extensive erosion controls. We have construction phasing. We have an order of conditions that's going to be followed. So we feel as if we've overcome the burden to show this commission that we've met the intent of your bylaw as well as the state's DEP's Wetlands Protection Act, and we're looking for a vote tonight.
Through the chair.
Yes.
You have a memo from Allen Engineering. It's memorandum for special flood hazard area. Do you guys have that in front of you? Dated 3/30/2026.
Yeah.
So, let me know when you find it.
It's this one.
It should be this one. It's right there.
Oh, that one instead? Sorry, my bad.
So in this, on the third page, there's a section that says compliance with Douglas Wetlands Regulations Summary. So Allen Engineering went through, different points to say why we are complying with the Douglas regulations. So, stormwater infiltration, perimeter stone trenches, minimizing building footprint, steep slope reduction, minimize limit of work, sediment and erosion control, project phasing, proposed planting. So these are all things that they are bringing to you to say, we believe this will not have adverse impacts to the resource area on site. So, if you have any questions for them, I would implore you to ask them now why they feel this won't have adverse impacts. I do stand with, recommending some plantings in place of those trees that are coming down. They did receive an arborist letter. We do want to see an arborist letter in these types of cases. On the other hand, they are outside of the 25-foot. Actually, some of the trees are outside of it. I think there's maybe one or two that are inside the 25-foot.
There's 4.
Okay, all of them are, okay. So they are inside the 25-foot no touch with some of the trees that are coming down, so that's something to take into consideration as well. But I definitely, if you have any questions for them as far as this goes, this is what you should take into consideration if you want to take a vote on it this evening. I'm going to say it again, I do believe that bordering land subject to flooding should be receiving a 25-foot no touch and a 50-foot no build under the bylaw. I do want to say also, I know Mark mentioned something about, needing soils and vegetation as far as the wetland, and it seemed like you were saying as far as determining where that setback would go, if you can correct me if I'm wrong. But, we have different resource areas protected under this bylaw. It's not only wetlands, swamps that have the hydric soils and have the hydrophytic vegetation. You have resource areas protected under this bylaw that receive the 25-foot no touch, 50-foot no disturb. And there's other resource areas, so say bank of pond, for example. Yes, that's delineating the edge of the pond, but the bank itself is considered a resource area. Banks aren't always going to necessarily have hydric soils, hydrophytic vegetation as well, but that itself is considered a resource area that receives a 25-foot no touch. So that's something to take into consideration as well. It's not just swamp with hydric soils and vegetation. We have these resource areas that are protected under this bylaw. So just something else to take into consideration. But that would be, my final thoughts on the matter. I think you should take into consideration what they brought before you, why they feel this isn't going to have adverse impacts, and maybe have a discussion upon, are you comfortable with this? It is a very steep site. I can bring up photos again if you'd like to see it. Are you comfortable with this? Do you think it's going to have adverse impacts?
I'm comfortable with it. I'm open to discussion, but that's from my perspective.
Do I need to close the hearing or not yet?
You can close it, yeah. If anybody else has any comments.
Does anyone else have any other comments?
Are you guys going to do a site meeting or a site visit, or you decided against it?
It's up to you.
My opinion, I was on the conservation 100 years ago. in town. Remember Mike? Mike's the only old guy here. Everybody else is too young. And I'll tell you what, you're asking all great questions, but you're going to get all that by a site visit. I know you don't want to go, and I know you're really busy, but there seems to be a disconnect because, we pay, we vote for people, they get elected, they appoint people, I can complain to them. And no disrespect to, a consultant, but it's not the people of Douglas that are put on these committees to interpret the actual sites, the flavor of town. I mean, I went on hundreds of site visits maybe, and every one, they're like snowflakes. You can't make a general determination about steepness. You just can't. You know what I mean? Like you just, I don't know if you just don't do them anymore, but
No, we've done site walks.
Yeah, I found that to be the most helpful thing to get the personal connection of what's going on. That's just my 2 cents. I don't know if you've talked about it, or you're going to vote on it or not vote on it. The site walk, all of that.
And it's up to the commission. You want to do a site visit, you do a site visit.
I appreciate what was just said. I also still feel comfortable seeing the elevation on the plan, and I do believe that it's very steep, which is why I'm kind of concerned about all the trees coming down. And in that area, and I imagine that all the root systems are helping to hold the soil in place on the steep slope, and I have concerns about it, I guess, is what I'm saying. So.
Mike?
Okay.
So I guess we need to vote, or we need to make a motion?
You
So
can
we're
close the public hearing first if everybody is done.
Does anyone want to do a site walk, or
I don't.
Brendan? No?
Okay.
No? Okay. Someone want to make,
Close the public hearing.
close the public hearing?
Do we also want to talk about any of the plantings and?
You can, if you want to have them do plantings, if you're going to vote on it tonight.
Yep.
Part of your vote could be requiring them to do
The plantings.
native plantings, however their consultant sees fit, however many you want. They're taking down 4 or 5 trees, right? 4 trees, so.
How big are the trees?
Not large.
They are,
Sorry.
I think.
yeah, geez.
Because I was looking for the arborist letter and I couldn't find it in here, so. Oh, it's that one? All right. I got it. Thanks.
I'd recommend personally, it looked like there were some oaks and white pine and one other kind of birch maybe.
Yeah.
I know oaks have significant ecological value, so I would recommend planting instead of some of the arborvitae. I know arborvitae is fantastic for privacy. We have some in our yard and it's great, but I'd request and or recommend planting maybe a few oak trees either in addition to the arborvitae or in place of a couple of them. And it's actually, you don't even necessarily need to buy the oak trees. They're actually better if you plant from just an acorn and make sure that it grows, because I know that's that's really specific, but they'll probably do better.
And that's something that these folks are completely
Yeah.
on board with.
Sure.
And in addition to, is that the arborvitae was meant to be a visual screening, and where those trees are sort of clustered next to the pump well house that's coming down, that pump well house is going to be removed, and it's going to be all naturally regraded. That'd be a perfect area to put another 4 to 8 oaks, pines, and birch mixes. So I think when you talk about the conditions, that would be first on the list.
You guys have any other conditions you'd want to?
I think the only question I would have about the trees isn't the point of you bringing some of the existing large ones down because of the fear of them falling on the house. Do you want to then put new trees there with the risk of them eventually falling on the house, or would you be better with something smaller?
Well, they're kind of dead and diseased in that area, so
Yeah.
the risk of falling is greater than if they were mature and healthy.
Okay.
So I think planting fresh, young, healthy trees with a life expectancy of 50 to 60, 70 years will be fine.
We'll all be gone, but your kids might.
I mean, ideally, like some flexibility where we put them, but still the same distance from the water.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I wouldn't think you'd want to block the view either. Like, you'd want to be planting, I wouldn't think along, yeah, so you'd want to pick them so you're not taking away from the view out to the water and everything as well.
Right.
Can you fit 8 trees?
Oh, yeah. Yep, we can sprinkle them in there.
So that'd be like 2 for everyone.
Yep.
Yep.
Someone want to make a motion?
So,
So close the public hearing for DP 143-1130 for the NOI for 48 Shady Lane, single-family home map, 148 Lot 5.
so my question, Sam, is what would the motion be if we're willing to accept what they have here with the condition of adding 8 trees?
If you're approving this evening, it would be a motion to approve, to issue an order of conditions with a special condition that for every 1 tree taken down, 2 trees will be planted. If you want to specify what trees and that they're native, you can specify that. You can do whatever you'd like to do. You can specify, okay, we want 8 oak trees, or, whatever you'd like to do.
Do we have a preference of the type of tree, or just 8?
I would say
plants?
just 8 trees that are similar to the ones that are being taken down, and I'd recommend oak and native oak if possible, just because they'll probably thrive more readily than others.
Also, you need to have a vote to close it, because you just said, because you have to have somebody make a motion and then a second to close.
Someone want to make a motion to?
I'll make a motion to close the public discussion.
Second. All right, so Brandon made a motion to close, second by Mike Greco. Roll call.
Brendan Doyle, aye.
Kate Rowland, aye.
Mike Greco, aye.
Jim Foran, aye.
So then can we have the...
Yep, you can make a motion.
I'll make a motion to issue order conditions with specifying that we add 8 trees of similar type to what's being removed currently to 48 Shady Lane, DEP file number 143-1130.
Just within the 25-foot no disturb zone. Could I just add that? Because those are the 4 trees that were taken out.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm sorry, within the 25-foot no disturb zone.
The entire site.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, thank you.
Brandon made a motion.
Second.
Kate, second the motion. To approve the NOI for the DP 143-1130, 48 Shady Lane, single-family home map, 148 Lot 5, for 8 trees to be planted along within the 25-foot zone, to also be either native or oak trees. Roll call.
Brendan Doyle, aye.
Kate Rowland, aye.
Mike Greco, aye.
All right, you're all set.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You have the paperwork to sign for that.
Let's just do 2, that's what she normally does, I think.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Can I just, do I make a motion, or does someone else have to make, can I just make?
You just say you need a motion to continue.
Okay.
Someone can make a motion.
All right, next on the agenda is DNOI for DP 143-1131, public hearing continued, Deer Crossing Development, Wood Road, road extension, wetland crossing, number 2, map 250 and 237, lot 1 and 15. Applicant did request to continue to April 27th meeting. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to extend to, hold on, I'm sorry.
Continue to April 27th.
Continue till April 27th meeting.
Do I have?
Second.
All right, I have a first by Brandon and a second by Kate Thompson to extend it to April 27th. Roll call.
Brendan Doyle, aye.
Kate Wallenbach.
Mike Greco, aye.
Jim Farr, aye. Next on the agenda is the enforcement order for South Street.
Hello, Jim Tessino and Mr. Norton. So I'm going to give you the abridged version, 100 miles an hour, because these people are in a hurry. And if you want to go back, we'll go backwards and answer questions.
Okay, sounds good.
So the Nortons buy the farm in 2015, and I didn't know him very well then, although I met him. He wants to move into the country, have a farm, provide a place for refuge horses, give training lessons, and help anxiety with horses. So when he moves there, he meets on site a few times with Steve Zist, the Conservation Commission, early on. He meets with him and the town engineer at some point. This goes into 2016. In 2016, there's a blight of moths that kills most of the trees in the upland area. He meets with the town engineer and Steve together shortly after that, but before 2023, and shows him what he wants to do. Basically, the property was always a farm. He maintained it as a farm. It is currently a farm. He has been cleaning the property up himself. Farming is not a very financially rewarding business. It's more of a passion, and it's been a slow endeavor. But he did have several meetings there with Steve and went over exactly what he needed to do to maintain the property. So after we got your letter, and I have some dates I want to go over with that, but he did retain McHugh Environmental. McHugh went out there and flagged the resources. I don't know why anybody uses black as a color.
Yeah.
But that just doesn't make sense. Well, anyway, so you can see it. If you overlay this on some of your pictures, and I didn't reprint your pictures for you, assuming you would have them, but if you overlay them on your pictures, you can see that the wetland line that's estimated by the GIS mapping is almost in the identical or same spot. Now, I know Sam went out there and did an investigation, took some pictures and did some augers. I did request a report, and it was forthcoming in the middle of February, but I noticed on that report there were no results of those augers that you did, Sam. I don't know if that data is located someplace else and you can provide it. I'm going to suggest you didn't find any hydric soils, so you didn't put it on the report, because I'm thinking you would have put it on the report if you found hydric soils there. So that said, it's a farm. If you read the Mass law, which is pretty much mimicking your regulation, although you changed some of the definitions around a little bit, he's doing nothing but maintaining his farm. He's not in the wetlands. You provide for all sorts of things: maintenance, grading, squaring fields, and providing for all of this stuff. So I'm going to suggest that he's a farm, and we don't have it, this is going to fall off there, and he's not filling the wetlands. Now, that said, he did have to deal with the trees that became hazardous, and he did push them all off to the side, of which, as time permits, he's been cutting them up and burning them for firewood. I have some other dates. I can quote sections of the statute of laws to you, but I just think we're at a misunderstanding. One perplexing thing for me is I guess there was a complaint that the town got somehow, and I requested the information of that complaint. I know Ryan has requested the information of that complaint, and it doesn't ever really appear anywhere. I have plenty of emails with Jen, and the complaint never materialized. So I don't know why the complaint never materialized. And we really haven't spent a lot of time. I think you call it the alleged complaint in September. In October, we actually hook up with Sam out there. We move mountains, we have people wait. She comes out there, she takes her pictures, she does her report. On the 5th, on the 2nd, or the 5th, she writes the report. I think we get it shortly after that. We hire McHugh. Weather is a problem. McHugh can't come out there. Snow, ice, all these other things. He comes out there and does his investigation sometime after that. I think we have that plan by the end of December. I went out there and reviewed it with Brian and McHugh. So I think that's where we are. I do see some emails about a restoration plan for tonight, but I don't think he filled the wetlands, and I think he's allowed, under just regular maintenance, to maintain those plateaus up until the edge of the wetlands in the regulation. So if it's a big misunderstanding, because this is a board in the community and he's a farmer, I don't know any successful farmers ever, to be honest with you. Just tell him what you want him to do. I mean, do you think the farm deserves a 25 no-touch? I mean, the regulation's clear. He can build temporary buildings not attached to the ground right on the edge of the wetlands. That's the way I read it. Now, because he's not a wetland specialist or conservation person, he just wants to be a gentleman farmer, he meets Steve out there several times. He meets Bill Cuniff out there at least once. And he asks for guidance. He shows them what they're doing. Cuniff was on the job, I think, until 23 sometime. And all of your aerial photographs basically run through 23 when Steve Cuniff was alive and well and driving all over Douglas. So I just think there's a misunderstanding. I mean, I'm being frank. These guys want to get in. I have dates, times. I did a bunch more research. But that's where I think we are. Now, if you tell them what you want to do, now this is what I'm thinking. I'm not speaking for him, it's his money. But if you want to protect that edge, if you want to put some 2-yard boulders or a fence to prevent creep in the future, I think that stuff is all reasonable. I think that's all reasonable. I don't know how fast he could put a fence up. I know he is. I know farming's just a miserable business. But we need to tell him solutions. We don't need to just tell him he's wrong, stop him from doing what he needs to do. He's lost so much time now to try to be able to maintain his facility. He's not going to develop a lot on the lake and flip it for $4 million. He's going to go further in debt next year and the year after. It's not greed, it's not opportunity, it's the desire to farm, which I just don't understand, quite frankly. It's a bad business model. But just tell him what he needs to do. Now, I think cleaning the edge up, I think burning the rest of that wood, I think maybe rip-wrapping or mulching or, some non-invasive thing on that existing edge that we have. I think 2-yard boulders is awesome, or a fence or markers, and you can prevent creep, because we developed these 25 and 50 and all of that stuff, not because we're actually protecting anything, it's because of lawn creep, right? That's why we invented 25-foot no-build and no-touch, because people end up in the wetlands. At least with this 25-foot buffer, we can prevent it. Like that. That's why it's there. But we need to tell him what to do. We just can't tell him we're going to fine him $200 a day. He's already spent $1,500 and $1,800 with McHugh, and he hasn't even got my bill yet. So just let's brainstorm as our town committee that reflects the values of Douglas, a farming community, and tell them what to do. What do you think? What do you think we should do? I mean, if you have particular questions, I don't want you to think I'm going quick, but, the facts are the facts. It speaks for itself. It does speak for itself. I mean, I'll be happy to answer questions. I've got all my stuff sort of organized. It won't take me too long to find the information.
Sam?
Thank you. Okay, so because this has been a while since this has been in front of you, I'm just going to kind of briefly go over how this situation occurred. So there was a complaint, I don't know, it came through the town. It was requested that I go do a site visit on site. Went to the site, took a bunch of pictures. In my site visit, I observed, also I would like to add that before the site visit, resources we use before we go out to a site, historic aerial photography, as well as soils that have been mapped out throughout the United States, which people have physically gone out into the field and done mapping, soil scientists, and that's how it's determined to know, okay, this is where we have hydric soils, this is the rough lines of where these soils are, right? So we use these different resources before we even go out to the site to evaluate the situation, right? So using historic aerial photography, we use Mass Mapper as one of the resources we use, which I'm bringing up on the screen right now. What I have up currently is from 2021. And when I take this layer off, we go to 2023, and we have this clearing that's been done. So you can clearly see this was existing beforehand. But once we get to 2023, we have a lot of clearing that's been done here. And then now this is 2025 that we have up here. So this aerial photography clearly shows that there's been some clearing that's happened, okay? We have a USGS map, perennial stream in the back here. Perennial streams receive a 200-foot riverfront area, okay? So already we can tell there's been disturbance within the riverfront area on this. Another resource we use is going to the Web Soil Survey, which you have up right here. You can see the rough lines of where soils have been mapped out throughout the years, and they're labeled, and we read them through this map unit name here. So this 52A, it might be hard for you to see, but this is a Freetown muck. Okay, that is a hydric soil. You find it in swamps, the muckest of mucks you can get, okay? So this is, you know, it mostly goes along the river here, well, at least that's shown on this one. And you can see it kind of extends right into where this cleared area is. So before I even go out there, I'm kind of getting an idea, okay, there's potential that we might have some hydric soils in this area based off of this mapping. We also have wetlands overlays that we look at as well. When I bring up the wetland overlay, sometimes that's not exactly accurate. They use, you know, the tree cover and they use different things to determine it, but it's not always them going out to the site. I did bring up the wetland overlay before here. Let's see. Oh, of course, that's the wrong one. Okay, so then it shows right here, this is where the wetlands are mapped on this map. But again, this is not the same as the soil survey. The soil survey, they actually physically went out there and did soil surveys throughout the area. Okay.
Who did that? So, like the state or something?
Yeah, it's a federal program. Yeah, Web Soil, so it's the USDA.
It's overlaid, it's not taken in the field.
Well, it is, they do.
No, they did not go on that property, I
Okay,
verified.
so it's not, maybe they did not exactly go on this exact property.
Exactly.
But this is how they determine it. They go out to different areas. This has been mapped out throughout the years. And now I'm just explaining this as a resource we use every time we go out to every single site, okay? So this is what we used beforehand. I went out to the site. Along this cleared area, okay, it is very obvious to me when I went out to the site that fill has been placed and there was a decline that went right down and you have the wetlands right there. Now, I did not take a picture of my soil sample along the edge of that. I did not document the soil samples along the edge of that. There was hydric soils in this location, hydric vegetation, and the stream, the U.S. mapped perennial river, was about 15 feet behind me here. Now, I did not take soil samples within this area because to me, there's about 1 to 3 feet of fill throughout this. So my auger is only about 3 feet long. I can't get down through that. So what we did was after this site visit, we issued an enforcement order, a cease and desist and enforcement order to the owner, which the extent of the activity, we put unauthorized clearing of trees, deposition of fill, and ground disturbance within a bordering vegetated wetland and or its 100-foot buffer zone, bank of stream and/or its 100-foot buffer zone, and the 200-foot riverfront area associated with the USGS mapped perennial stream. So this was dated October 7th, 2025. Under this, we requested that a restoration plan, actually I'll read it. We said a restoration plan shall be filed with the issuing authority on or before January 6, 2026 for the following. Property owner must hire a wetland scientist to delineate wetlands on site and create a restoration plan for impacted wetland, riverfront area, and/or buffer zone. Restoration plan must be submitted within 90 days and is subject to $200 a day fines if not submitted by the above date. So, the above date came and went, and the commission agreed that they would give an extension to the applicant and allow them to give him more time to submit a restoration plan. In this letter, we said, we're looking, so this letter serves as formal notice requiring the submittal of a restoration plan within 30 days of receipt of this letter. This letter is dated February 18th, 2026. So within 30 days of receiving this letter, or by the Conservation Commission meeting of April 6, 2026, so that's today, whichever comes first. Failure to comply with the above referenced timeline will result in the issuance of $200 a day fines per Section 13 of Article 8 up until a restoration plan is submitted to the Commission. So up until today, we have not received anything. This is the first time that I have seen anything. So, you know, we usually want to be given material, I mean, at least a week in advance of the meetings to give us time to review it, to give you time to review it, to give an opinion on it. So we have not had any time to look at this. So it's the first time I'm looking at this. So, you know, to comment on it just by looking at it, it looks to me that McHugh went around the area of Phil, and I don't know if he hung any flags or not. It says flag BBW edge. There's no flag numbers on here. It's just a line. But I'm from looking at this, it seems that he flagged the wetland edge, or the edge of the fill that is right coming up to the wetland. Now, typically, when you request the restoration plan, for example, we had another one, and I'm Laurel Hill Lane, that they had a restoration plan submitted. They had their wetland scientists go out, and it's on them to determine where the wetland was before fill was placed within it. So that's not on me to determine when I go out there, because you're going to need an excavator with this kind of situation to determine, or, you know, a shovel, whatever, to determine where was this wetland originally. When I look at the soils map, there's wetland soils right through where this area of clearing is. So it's on them to have someone go out, determine where was the original wetland line, because that's how we have to start. We have to figure out where was the wetland before any of these impacts occurred. And then you go from there to determine, okay, here's where it was, here's the type of restoration that needs to happen. And if you can see my screen here, you know, this area is where the river goes, so it kind of goes off in this direction. There's wetlands adjacent to the river here. The wetlands aren't quite over in this area, but then you come around here and it's wet around this area. So I have concerns, just being on site, that in combination with the soils that are mapped out, that it could be potentially an acre of wetlands that have been filled here, if that's the case.
So can I ask a question about this slide before you change it? What do the light green hashes represent?
This is the DEP mapped wetlands.
So the green is the wetlands right here?
Those are the DEP mapped wetlands, which are not always accurate.
So you just, so those aren't accurate. So for this picture, we're saying the DEP's imaging does not say there's wetlands in these other areas, but because it's not accurate. Okay.
But that's why we requested wetlands, right?
Basically, you know, what happens is they do these rough wetlands that they map out on their, whoever's in their office on GIS, they roughly map out these wetlands. It happens all the time. This is a resource that we use to say, okay, they have them mapped out here. This is where they think these wetlands are. These are not always accurate. I can say from my experience, we do wetland delineations all the time, and 80% of the time, these are not necessarily accurate. A lot of the time, the wetland is more, sometimes it's less than what they have mapped out, and that's just what it is. They didn't go out to the site to look at this. They don't go on the ground with these type of maps that they create. They just create it from giving a rough estimate of what they're looking at online.
I agree with that. So would Steve, when he went out there in 22 or 23, when it looked like this, would he have that map available to him?
What year?
22 or 23?
Yeah.
Okay, so Steve was on site there, and he used this map. How did Steve determine that what he was doing at the time was okay?
Was Steve here in 23?
That's not for us to
Steve was here in
determine
23.
how
Was he?
reviewed.
Because I think he, so, no, I'm only asking because didn't he retire that year?
He retired at the end of 23. Yeah. So, but this is my point, though, and I'm not disagreeing with anything Sam says, and I'm saying possibly all the way to the road was muck one day, but it was a farm when he bought it. He just maintained. Now, the picture looks like a ton of fill, but I'm going to tell you that topography is flat everywhere. You had a topo map that had some numbers on it, and you'll see that it's flat, and that's why the muck got there over the last 10,000 years, is because it was flat. If it was a hill, there would be no muck there.
Through the chair.
Yes.
I'm a little confused as to why what we had requested be done excuse me, please let me finish.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I'm a little confused as to why what we requested the applicant produce 4 months ago with including a 1-month grace period has not been provided, and now you're asking us to tell you what to do when what we told you what to do 4 months ago has not been done. That is my question.
I'm going to suggest to you, we don't believe we need to do any restoration.
But we don't have a plan showing...
How would I provide a plan showing restoration if we were not going to do any...
But with the wetland scientist going out and doing the report, you would have a defined area. So like Sam said, that is just an overlay, it's an approximation.
This isn't an overlay, this is the soil science.
I was talking about the green spots up
This is not a
there.
restoration plan.
But he shows us not in the wetlands on this plan. You can see the line continues away out of that plateau area in both directions.
That's the current, that's not what
Yeah, but he
was
followed, if I
previously.
just may show you, because that's why I disagree with black being on a plan. He plots this line right here, all the way over here.
I see.
And he plots it way over here.
Yep.
So this is, and if you look at, on her map, that line and this line sort of match. He just verified the actual line in the field. This map and that map actually correlate. Now, under the farm regulations and the farm exemptions, he's allowed to maintain, fill up to, and do all of that up to that area. He doesn't have a 25-foot setback. He doesn't have a 50-foot setback.
So on that note, if I recall correctly, Sam, that Brendan, I had to look at your name today. Brendan said that he asked for receipts to make sure that it was being used as a farm, correct?
Brandon?
Yeah.
Better saying Brendan.
No, not him.
But it wasn't me.
No.
I thought you were the same guy.
No, we have, no.
You guys were the same.
So I think he asked for information if you had that, because as long as,
I could provide.
right, and
That I would. He said, if I asked you for them, could you provide? And he had to ask for receipts. I have plenty of receipts. He has all of my files.
because I believe, so from that, I'm just doing recall, right? I assumed he was asking you if you can produce it, so that way, because then that would be considered, that totally takes it a different route versus
I guess I
this route. So,
But I get what you're trying to say, but, so, I hated when people used to do this to me when I was young, like, oh, you folk, but I'm old, and that's been a farm since Columbus founded America, right? And he bought it to be a farm, to maintain farming there. And it's a horrible business model. In these exemptions that are clear in the state law and even your own bylaw, you change some of the words around, but it's almost identical. Because, we depend on farming, number one, and number two, it's not a for-profit industry. We can't expect to condemn their land because of setbacks. We just can't.
But I thought what we just said was, and again, I'm going recollection here as well, Jim, but
Yeah.
at that time, we basically said, hey, this would be less of a problem if you could prove that it was a farm. So if you can prove it's a farm, maybe none of this happens. But I don't think that we ever got that evidence, if I remember correctly. So you were given, I think, an opportunity to kind of avoid a lot of this.
Somebody asked you if you were able to. If I asked you theoretically to provide, I never received an email or a formal request if you want.
Okay, so I'll be nice. So are you willing to provide something?
I'm sure we can definitely do the research, but I mean, and I'm not, I don't want to throw Jen under the bus because she's awesome.
No, she is.
But I've had 7, 8, 9 emails back and forth with Jen, and never one time is she asking me if it's a farm. Now, and I only got involved because, like, I saw the delay, and you talk about the 4 months, which I respectfully want to point out, that we didn't get the site visit, you didn't do a site visit until October, we didn't get the results of that site visit until February 18th. So that's when we got the letter, was emailed to me on February 18th. The letter was dated February 2nd, but our first receipt of it is February 18th in an email. So, I mean, I don't want to argue semantics, but to say that somebody burned 4 months is not true. He gets notice of it in October. He tries to find a wetland scientist specialist. He can't find anybody. I know McHugh because I use him personally. I find him to be very competent. I call him up. He doesn't get time for us until December. Then he gets snow. He doesn't do the flagging. Now, in the meantime, I have emails from Jennifer saying that, I thought it was you, and I apologize, knows McHugh, and he's talking to him. So, I mean, don't think we burned the clock. I mean, if I don't even think a clock has started yet, quite frankly.
Well, I would just add there that that's all fine. And look, nobody here wants to see somebody from the town getting burned. That is not the intent. But over the course of 4 months, there could have been anything, an email, a phone call, anything.
I got emails and phone calls since Christmas.
Okay.
I've been talking to Jen. I've been on this quest almost immediately after I went out there the first time, as I wanted to find calendar entries, journal entries, notes that Steve and Bill Conniff did when they went out to the site. I mean, and I waited a month and a half for her to go through all the, which is not, I'm not saying it's unacceptable, but a month and a half for her to call the records, and at one point she said she was going to try to call them. And I waited a month and a half for that, so don't you might take exception to say we burned 4 months, because we didn't.
Did you need to wait for those?
Yeah, because I needed Steve to show up and say it's a farm, and yeah, that's what I told.
Sir.
Yeah, okay. I'm just.
Sir.
Go ahead.
Did you need to wait for that response and information in order to continue with other work?
What other work?
I need a yes or a no, please.
Yes.
You needed to wait for.
I needed to wait for
to get the notes from the previous Conservation Commission before you could move forward.
The Conservation Commission, the agent.
The conservation agent before you could move forward.
Sure. Because I'm under the opinion that he visited the site, he saw what was going on multiple times, he reviewed it with Brian, and none of it's changed since his last day here. You pull up the last map, it's when he still works here. He's still driving by, driving the town vehicle, going on calls, responding to complaints. And this brings me back, I am an analytical person with a degree, right? Why haven't we got the original complaint? Because I got to tell you, I don't know why. I don't know why we haven't got the original complaint. I'm in business. I get people that complain about me. Jen turns them over. She turns over phone logs. She turns over copies of letters. She redacts licenses, numbers, or whatever pertinent stuff that she can't redact. But I never got who the complainant is, you know? And I am a conspiracy theorist. I believe in conspiracies. So none of this happens until the Nortons are one of the benchmark members of the Right to Farm community.
honestly, all due respect, I didn't know that. And I respect that. I appreciate that it's a right to farm community, and
Oh, I think that's why I moved here. I mean, that's why I bought property here, for sure.
that I just want to be extra clear on the record that has nothing to do
No,
with...
no, I know, but so to answer your question more completely, I'm waiting for that information still. But I did not stop there. We continued on. But that information needs to be forthcoming eventually from somebody.
Do we have
What
that
information
letter?
are we talking about?
I think he's talking about
The
the letter, the complaint letter and the notes from...
No, who complained about
Right, the complaint.
process?
So the complaint letter.
I hear Sam say more than once that she responded to a complaint. So who generated that complaint?
Do we have that?
We have to have it. We can't really.
I'd have to ask Jen.
Okay.
Okay.
And you have asked Jen for the letter?
Yeah.
Well, is that true that you have to have a written letter for a
No, you
complaint?
have
It
to
can't
have a
be a phone
complaint.
call?
And through the chair, I
Yes.
mean, it's visible from the road also. So, I mean, anyone could drive by and see it as well. Not that that makes a difference. I mean, I don't know, I need to see with Jen if there was a formal complaint written in or what the situation is. But
But Sam, what consequence is that if we have a written,
I don't know.
So I usually get phone logs. I have people complain about noisy trucks, dust, dirt. I had conservation complaint on one of my properties before, and I actually, Jen provided the actual letter from the complaint, and it was in a butter that was complaining about nothing ultimately, that's how it went. But and I do agree, to follow up on something Sam said, it was visible from the road. It's been visible from the road since 2023 in this exact state. If you look at the aerial maps even present, and we don't show some of the latest ones, it's almost exactly the same from 2023. So that's why I'm getting upset, because this fella has been trying to do farming since 2015, so he can appease the anxiety of his family members, is how it starts. And now it's a problem. Now it's a problem. It wasn't a problem in 2023, it's a problem now.
yeah, but I think we get a complaint, we react to the complaint.
Yeah.
So that, it wasn't, I don't think anybody here was looking
No,
to
like-
to
No, I don't think
find
that-
an
no,
issue.
no, no,
So
I'm not even
point
trying to
being, if a
insinuate
complaint
anything.
comes in, however we get it, the complaint is issued and we have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I don't think, while I agree that complainants oftentimes should be sitting here with us having the discussion, that's not the case. So we just have to deal with the complaint. We issued this violation with and it's clear as day in here, there was no malicious intent, like, don't want to fine them.
No.
We want to resolve it because we got a complaint, we need to take care of it.
I mean, I live here in Douglas, and the last thing I want to do to any person that lives here is issue a fine. Like, that's not what we want to do. It's not a business coming in doing X, Y, and Z. We're all here, everyone moved to Douglas because it's more of the I know, right? Resort,
I think
right?
it's a resort. I do think it's a resort.
It's more,
Depends on your perspective.
yeah, right?
That's
So,
where you came from, I guess.
But I think the bottom line is, how do we get, at this point, he's in violation of the enforcement order. Well, except that you're at this meeting, so technically, you bring a plan to the meeting, I guess you technically meet the requirements of the violation order.
It's not a restoration plan.
It's not a restoration plan.
Well, again, I'm not going to argue that. I'm in agreement with you, but there's something being done.
And it's discretionary to you.
Right.
You made it discretionary before when you extended the deadline. It is discretionary to you. Go ahead.
So I sympathize with the fact that I don't know whether it's required to disclose who complained, what, or not. I don't know whether it's required to provide notes from previous commission agents, conservation agents. But I guess my question is there any other information that you need in order to move forward that has not yet been provided in order to move forward with potentially providing a restoration plan, and thank you for letting me finish.
Well, I respectfully, I think we're right back where we started. We don't need to restore anything.
But
It's been like that forever.
I think we need to prove, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting
Yeah.
you now, and
Yeah, no, that's okay.
But-
People get passionate about their things, and I appreciate that. I appreciate it. And I'll tell you, not to interrupt you, but I'm still talking. I think, let me, and again, I don't want to harp on it, and I know, I volunteer for a lot of things, and I know volunteering is tough, and I usually have supper by now, and it's 8 o'clock. So I really appreciate everybody coming out to volunteer. But this is what's remiss by not having the commission go on the sidewalks. I gotta be perfectly honest with you, I hated the Saturday mornings. But like, if you went there would be no doubt it's a farm today. There'd be no doubt that it was a farm 20 years ago, and there would have been no doubt that you probably could have seen the old tractors and stuff, that it was a farm 20 years before that. And that's the part you're missing by not I'm not telling you to change your philosophy. If having the consultant do all the work for you on the field is working. But it's not, Dickie Downs was a legendary conservation chairman. You must read about him in Conservation Archives. But he was a farmer. It was Downs's farm. And he's the only farmer I know that made money when he sold it all to build houses. But that's the flavor of Douglas. Who sits on these committees because of people we elect is how the system works. I mean, I think Sam is one of the most articulate conservation people I've ever listened to of recent history. But she doesn't represent Douglas. She just doesn't. I don't know what to say. Maybe I'm just too old to exist in this type of environment today. But it is a farm. It will be a farm. I don't know how much we can submit in that regard. And I don't know why the onus is really on us to prove that, although now I'm just being argumentative.
You should have been a lawyer.
yeah.
I hate lawyers.
Well, you make a very good one. I do have a quick question, Sam. So my question is, because I'm going back from recollection from another one, in order to have a farm and be labeled, is there a certificate or is there some way that it has to be?
Prove you are selling a commodity, basically. And now, I am by no means, Brandon is much more educated in the farming regulations and the agricultural exemptions, so this is something that I would like to take back to him to discuss a little bit more.
Okay.
I know that you have to prove that you are selling a commodity. I don't know how much money it needs to be, so that's part of it. Also, there are agricultural exemptions in the Wetlands Protection Act, but there's specific, wording, normal maintenance of agriculture. So there's definitions of what's your normal maintenance. Does this exceed normal maintenance? If you have a hay field, for example, you're allowed to square off your hay field and cut back trees from your hay field. Even if those trees are in the BVW, you're allowed to cut those branches back so sunlight doesn't impede your hay, right? So there's things that are normal maintenance for agricultural use. Now, it's up to them to prove to you, they need to bring a professional forward to say, this is why this farm complies with our agricultural exemptions under the Wetlands Protection Act. And they need to have something, even if, I think the commission would probably be satisfied if a couple holes were dug, get a wetland scientist in there, dig a couple holes, and tell me if I see bright soils underneath that, and I'm not seeing hydric soils underneath what's here, beautiful. Then you've proven to us that no wetlands have been filled. Dig a couple holes, get a backhoe in there, dig a few holes in a couple different spots, bring it before the commission and say, here's, we've dug some holes, we have upland soils underneath this, and then we can move from there. Regardless, there's work that's been done within the 200-foot riverfront area as well, which previously existed as fully forested in that area. As far as I'm aware, that forested area was not being used as agriculture. Now, if it was, that's something that you guys can bring to the commission and say we were using this as agriculture. So it needs to be brought by them to the commission. This is how we've been using it, So regardless, something needs to be, you need something to show you what was there beforehand.
I really appreciate that. So I don't know if you went off 1 foot off the edge of the road and dug down 5 feet, you wouldn't find hydric soils there. I don't know if that's really a good investigative tool anywhere in a low-lying area, quite frankly, because they built roads, houses. I mean, we're talking about the current time. But you know, like if we went there on a sidewalk, you could see barbed wire grown into the trees in the wetlands. You know, and it, you know, what you classify and the state classify, although you change some of the words around, normal maintenance, the exemptions are pretty lengthy. And they do include squaring off the corner of a field right into the bordering vegetated wetlands. That's exempt, right? Now, some things aren't exempt, but you can do. You can fill, alter, move wetlands. Now, for major reconstruction projects, the state and you guys align and say that you got to file a plan and follow that plan. But, you know, your normal maintenance or improvements are pretty well defined in here. Now, the definition of a fine, Sam was pretty close. You have to sell something, and I believe you have a permit to have a farm there, right? You have a livestock farmer. The thing they sell now are, you know, horse-related lessons and stuff like that. But the point I want to be clear on, I don't want to get lost in the minutia, is that along the way, while he was cleaning up this mess, farms are messy, right? My son owns Ben's Dumpsters, and Ryan has taken 24 dumpsters of debris out of that property from 2015 when he bought the property, right? Because farmers just left shit where it broke. Right, so he's in the process of, and he's not even done of cleaning, really. But what I will tell you is that he came up with a question, and it wasn't Sam that he called, it was the conservation agent, and the conservation agent visited the site, and he specifically reviewed what he was doing. Now, I really was hoping that Jen would find the results, or at least meetings or calendar dates, because to me, that's a full stop. He had a question. This is what I want to do. Yeah, you can do that. Clean that up. Make sure you get rid of those tires right. Oh, yeah, do this, do that. Oh, no, you shouldn't burn that. So I think whenever Steve left, you know, that's valuable information, and I don't even know if the guy's still alive. But, you know, Ryan definitely didn't want to get himself in a $200 a day fine, so he reached out to the conservation agent and he said, hey, can you come look at this? You know, and I don't know if you knew Steve at all, but Steve was all over the place. I mean, Steve would pop in my office, use the bathroom. Do you know what I mean? Like, Steve was in town during the day. So I mean, I hope I don't want to beat it to death, but I hope I'm making my point that he wanted to know what he could do. He read this. He bought one of copies of one of these, and he's, you know, a smart guy, so he saw what the state did. And he asked Steve, what can I do? And Steve made multiple visits to the site during the process. Matter of fact, I don't even know when you hired the consultant, but I don't think he's really done any work since the consultant's been on board. I think all of that predates the consultant.
If I could just interrupt for a sec, can we just resolve this, like figure out what we need to do at this point?
Okay, so
otherwise we're going to be here all night.
You said something which I think will just totally help us resolve 90% of this. You said you have a business certificate for the horses and for that, right? So that kind of helps further along for the farmland, right? So to me, I would think if you could just give us a certificate for that, we can schedule this, continue it, push it out, not do any fines, but that gives us the opportunity, or you the opportunity to, like, someone can figure out, like, is it a certificate that's required to see if it is a farmland? And if it is, then like that just kind of alleviates almost everything for us. Well, and Brandon was trying to help last time. That's why he asked, you know, about that, because just kind of goes off to the other side, which you get more rights and more things to be able to do to farm and everything else, or horses or whatever.
I think, though, what we need is to make sure that you got, I don't know, and maybe you do, Jim, that just because he has a farm, that he's exempt from all of these things, everything on it. I don't know that personally, and I think we need to figure that out.
Right.
So I think if you do have a farm and you have a certificate or whatever it is, I don't know how you get certified for that, but whatever that is, that's great. Then we need to figure out, okay, if he has that, how does that impact this, what we're here to talk about today? And then in the meantime, how do we make it to the next step? So I would suggest that maybe we just extend this out. We pick some number of days. It's a month, 2 months, whatever a fair time is, without any, we're not sending any violations, financial penalties towards them, but we got to have a date to which we have a closure here. And personally, I don't like sitting here for an hour talking and getting nothing done.
Yeah.
So I'd rather let's pick a date, let's come to an agreement. By then, from our end, we should be able to say, we got the certificate or whatever it is for this farm, this means something or means nothing. Then we come up with the next step. Is that okay? And what's a fair time for that? Is it 60 days time? 30 days? I don't know.
What do you guys like?
I don't, what do you think, 60 days? Okay. 60 days, I think that is not unreasonable, but you get my point though, right?
We got it.
Yes, you beat it to a dead horse. No, we do get it, we do.
Can I ask a question about that, actually?
It makes sense to me that he asked and he got, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, look at today, like, so just to comment on something about, the regulations are pretty clear on what you can do on a farm, on that, so, but.
Right. So fine, yes, go ahead.
Unless, Sam, you're...
No, go ahead.
Okay. I saw your face that you were like ready to talk. Even if Steve, is that his name?
Yes.
Even if he did, and I appreciate that you reached out and did due diligence and had him visit and provide his opinion, even if he did do all of that, which I believe he did, can we make a decision based on an opinion that he gave outside of the Conservation Commission, and maybe it should have been an NOI? Like what? Like is that?
That's something I need to discuss with Brandon a little bit more.
The lines are gray.
It is a little gray because there's certain situations where people will reach out to the commission and say, hey, do you think this is jurisdictional? Another town, they do site inspection requests. They'll have a commission member come out and say, hey, do you think this is jurisdictional? Do I need to file anything? And they might say no or yes. So different towns do different things for that kind of thing.
Yep.
So Steve very may well have said, no, you don't need to file anything. I don't think you're whatever. Now, if we have record of that, that would be helpful for your decision for sure. If I don't have record of that, I'm going off of, what I'm seeing here and what everything is showing me in the mapping. I also want to say that, okay, it would be great to have the proof of land and agricultural use, correct? So have him show us his certificate, show us he's getting a certain amount of money, whatever it may be. Even then, like we said before, there's certain limitations to normal maintenance of land and agricultural use. You can't just go do whatever. So there are limitations to that. So we will still maybe at the end of the day need to know, okay, where were the wetlands originally? Because as I'm saying, I think there is high potential that some wetlands were filled on this site. How much, I don't know. But we will not know until some holes are dug within this area that's shown on this site to show are there hydric soils underneath it. So that's kind of where I feel that we would be left off. And to expect next time, okay, even if there are exemptions, that doesn't necessarily mean that this is done and over with. We need to see where the original wetlands were, where the wetlands were before any of this clearing happened in 2021. So that's kind of where I would leave it.
So just to touch on, we keep going back, right? So Steve Ziss is Sam. Okay, so Sam shows up and tells you guys there's a problem someplace, and you believe it. So Steve was Sam. Steve showed up, and there wasn't a problem. And at the end of the day, I guess my legal opinion is, you're really bound by that, fellas. You're really bound by that. Steve was the conservation agent. He responded to a inquiry, which is the same as a complaint. It came from the owner. He visited the site, and he gave his opinion. His opinion mattered. That amounts to a stopper, to be honest with you. Like you want him to prove it's a farm, I don't think that's unreasonable. I don't think that's unreasonable. But what Steve did, and during that time, it really is a stopper. Like, there was no other action.
I don't think we can talk about who said what 3, 4, 5 years ago. It's irrelevant.
No, it's not
It is 100% irrelevant. If you don't have it in writing, you don't know. You weren't there. I wasn't there. How do you know it happened? Because he told you?
It's hearsay, right?
So we don't know.
Well, no, I'm just saying, what you're saying, technically, if you want to get really technical, you're just saying what he said to you. Steve is not here to say, yes, I said that. So technically, that turns into just hearsay.
So I'm
not trying to be difficult, but
I'm leaving. But so let me ask you this: what more could he have done? What more could he have done?
Well, Brandon asked him for...
No, I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about 2023.
I don't know. I wasn't here in 2023, so when I came in 23 towards the end, Steve left. So,
think of yourself as a homeowner, a farmer, a business.
Oh, I get it.
What more could he have possibly done? What more could he have possibly
I don't think any of us are arguing what happened in the past. We just don't see it. The only thing I can tell you is if I were the homeowner, I would have said I would like something in writing so that if this ever comes back to me in the future, I have it right here. I present it to the Concom. We're done. End of story.
And I don't mean to be like the jerky person or anything, but it's like when you're young and you go and you get a used car, right? And they say, oh, you got like 6 months warranty. And then you go back because something breaks, a month later or whatever, right? And then they go, show it to me in writing. And I'm like, but you told me, it's kind of the same thing. Buyer beware, right? Like, and I'm all about Douglas and,
I know. But obviously, things happened different before. Like, we listened to that young fella that wasn't wearing socks with sneakers tell us about all of these other sites that this commission approved without holding a 25-foot thing. And, Sam's interpretation is definitely new, right? So they did it different before. The conservation did it different before. And you can't unwind that clock. Just like, we can't change what happened, and this is what happened. I think, push comes to shove.
So can I make a motion then that we extend the enforcement order for 60 days and that we'll put together what the details are of what we need for information from the homeowner?
Yeah, I think we need Brandon to speak with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we extend at least 60 days, so there's no risk of penalties.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing I really want to do to any homeowner.
You can make a motion.
Yep.
And what I can do is write up another memo that says exactly the motion that you made, exactly what we were talking about, just so it's on the record, we have it here, and it'll say, just like the other memo, when you guys extended it before, it'll say the same thing. It's been extended another 60 days, we said, correct? Mm-hmm. So for him to bring in, some type of proof that he is, selling a commodity, he's land and agricultural use, correct? Mm-hmm. And then for Brandon and I to get together to see, okay, what are the exemptions here? Mm-hmm. Based off of that, what's the exemptions? I want to talk to Brandon. And then we can kind of go from there. If in the meantime, if you guys can get some type of something, I know you've been trying with Jen, but if you can, I can talk to her too, but if you can find something from Steve Zisk that, there was some type of memo for this site visit, that would be very helpful as well. And then we can kind of go from there. But again, like I said, we may still need to see some holes here on this site.
May I make a recommendation for timing rather than just 60 days and say that we'd like to have any material that's going to be, I'd like to request that we basically wait until June 15th, which is a meeting just over 60 days from now, and any material that we'd need to have for that meeting would need to be provided by June 11th, which is still more than 60 days from now.
I mean, and if, like, you guys get everything really fast and, like,
We'll send it in as we get it.
whatever, and, you know, if we can move you up on the schedule, we will do so. We'll be more than happy to, just to get everything moving and done and resolved. So,
But he's been reluctant to pick up debris. I mean, we stopped him like midstream. Can we agree that he can pick up debris and throw debris away? Like, I mean, the cease and desist is number one, generic, and two, all-inclusive. So he's going to waste another summer, too. And part of it's his fault, but...
What is debris?
Like, they got old buildings that were in that area that were ripped down, that he took down, and he was getting rid of them by loading them in a dumpster. And, you know, there's stuff like that.
The old tractor tires.
Yeah, and he culled out 1 million tires out of the woods that are piled up everywhere. Like, I don't know. Like, he's already lost the springtime, but it wasn't much of a spring, though. It felt like it was snowing out there today. I'd hate to see him lose the summer.
But you're not, it's 60 days, we're talking June, so you're not losing the summer.
Or sooner if.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, let's do that and see. Okay, I really appreciate your time. Sorry for being long.
Do we still need to vote?
Make a motion. I would make the motion.
what about, so before you do, what about for picking up the stuff? Like, for the trash?
I'm not moving material or...
It's up to your comfort, because...
I'm okay with removing tires.
Like, you're just removing trash and you're not building anything, you're not, you know...
Just include that in your motion, okay?
Yeah.
So you'll be all set to go, the enforcement's still there, but we're going to allow you to get rid of the trash, okay?
You have the deadlines, like, for the, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you. So I'd like to make a motion to halt the fines until we are able to reevaluate at our not our next meeting, at our June 15th meeting, and that the applicant the applicant and Brandon and Jen will all communicate, coordinate, and try to resolve prior to the material deadline on June 11th, and submit the materials that are needed for review at the meeting on June 15th by June 11th. And that the applicant is able to remove any debris, man-made debris from the property in order to clean it up a bit.
I second.
I have a first by Kate, a second by Brandon. I'm sorry, all in roll call, please.
Brendan Doyle, aye.
I know it's getting late.
Mike Greco, aye.
Jim Foran, aye.
The only thing I would ask is, can we get this added to what would be the meeting in between? Just so we get an update, because if this sits for 30 days and nobody does anything, and we have to sit through that again.
Yeah.
I will, no, I'm going to bring out my timer.
May 18th would be the midpoint.
May 18th, okay.
For that, I'm bringing out my timer. But anyways, can someone make a motion, because we're almost at that 8:30 mark, please?
I'd like to make a motion. Sorry, let me got tongue-tied. I'd like to make a motion to extend past the 2-hour meeting time.
I reluctantly second that motion.
I have a first by Kate and a second by Brandon to extend the 2-hour mark. Roll call, please.
Brendan Doyle, aye.
Kate Rowland, aye.
Mike Greco, aye.
Jim Foran, aye. All right, next up on our agenda will be the Gilboa Pond Trail visioning.
Only an hour.
An hour? I gotta go to work tomorrow.
Kate extended it.
I'm so sorry.
I was watching the clock because I was request that you do extend it so you could hear it.
Yeah, we wouldn't want you waiting here for 2 hours.
And say sorry, have a good night.
Anyways, for the record, Bob and Eric, Town of Douglas Economic Development, on behalf of
Danny Marini King, Manager of Environmental Planning at the Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission.
there's two things we want to discuss tonight. The first one is on the agenda, which is the Gilboa Pond on-trail visioning, and the key word here is visioning. It's in a concept stage. We just didn't want you to get blindsided as a commission that we're working on Riverwalk trails in town. Several areas in town, one on Mechanic Street, the other one in Gilboa Pond. This one happens to be Gilboa Pond, which we just walked the site today. We're in the concept stage, and I just want to reiterate that. There's no plans, we're not at that stage yet. We're just, so you don't get blindsided by the rumor mills out there, you know what's coming. Okay? It's just a professional courtesy to you guys. So Danielle will discuss that in a little more detail. And then I thought Jen was going to put on here, I got to talk about tree plantings. I know it's real boring after that first party up there. But we've got a mitigation of 12 trees for the retaining wall for the town project for Depot Street. I want to talk to you guys about that because we ran into a little problem for location, so I just need to get it out in front. But first is Danielle, and we can always discuss mine under topics not reasonably anticipated 4 hours, so we can sneak it. Because it's not technically on.
I don't want to speak for the chair, but I don't think we're going to make you go through meeting minutes, listening to meeting minute edits before you're able to talk.
I'll try to go rapid fire here. I know it's already been a long meeting. CMRPC has been working with the town of Douglas for the past about 2.5 years on what's called the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program. You might be familiar with it. But it's a state grant program that provides funding to communities so that they can understand where there's going to be more risk or vulnerabilities to climate change, extreme weather events. And in particular, it really looks at sort of what we call priority population, so folks in town that might be at more risk. So our aging population, folks that don't have a car, folks that are low income, don't have as much resources to respond to or react to or prepare for climate change. So we went through that planning process, went really well. We worked with a few liaisons, community members in town that represent some of those priority populations. And we're able to get a reset list of resilience priorities that the town wants to work towards to build the resilience, make folks more prepared for those climate impacts. So that's the first phase of that project. The second phase is that the state also provides up to $50,000 to implement some sort of small project that came out of that planning process. So this is that small project that came out of it. We had originally looked at building a resiliency park or pocket park over at the Gilboa Pond parking lot, a big parking lot. I think it's 105 Gilboa Street. There's some site limitations there. We can't really do what we had intended, so we're going to pivot. We're hoping to pivot instead to, I believe it's 67. Let me just check.
Let me just add one comment to that. The original intent was to do something with the parking lot. Get rid of the impervious material, plant trees. There's a limitation on what we can do in that parking lot. Even though it's our land, the mill has access for parking spaces. So there's so many square feet of warehouse, they have to have X amount of parking spaces. Where they're parking right now, it's not enough. They do have access to that parking lot, so we can't reduce the spaces, which means we can't take away the impervious area.
That's the dirt one opposing the building, right? The factory? Dirt lot?
On the riverside of the mill.
It's not dirt.
Yeah,
it's paved.
Oh, it is?
That's paved. That's paved. And we can't reduce that because they have not come forward with variance to reduce their amount of spaces, so they need that, even though it's our land. We took it into tax taking back in 2012, I think. But not to get off the subject. So the original intent was to do something with the parking lot. We said, wait, time out, we can't do anything with the parking lot. In a nutshell.
So we own it, but they get to use it because of the building and the quantity of people or whatever. Okay.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there a time frame on, like, you said you took it as part of the tax?
Yeah, in 2012.
Does that extend forever, or is there?
Yes. we own it, and until it goes on square footage, this is the planning board. It's in our bylaws. So many square.
So per the square feet they need, yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
But so, like said, the original intent was to sort of remove that pavement. We would reduce a hot spot that's there, so provide more cooling, we'd have shade there. So really wanting to provide a cooling space and also like a community gathering space for the neighborhood and area in town. So instead of that, because we, with that limitation, the town recently took 67 Gilboa Street, which is large wooded lot right next to the pond and the river there. And so what we're hoping to do is, again, very conceptual stage, but do some visioning to have a trail that runs down into there so that we've got that parking lot there, so it's a great access point so people can still come and access a future trail, but come down and in there and then build a trail, sort of trail system through there so that people can still access a cooling space. Right now, nobody can get into it. We did just visit the site today. It was a lot of bushwhacking, lots of ticks, pulling ticks off of us. So not really accessible right now, but what we'd like to do is have some sort of visioning process, invite the community into it, invite this committee into that visioning process to understand where can we safely, both for folks, folks in mind, and also for the resource that's there, construct a trail around, show people access to the pond, have this nice loop, have some educational signage that's within that parcel there. We saw a bunch of deer droppings there, educational signage about deers, the birds that are there, the fish that might be in the pond and the river that are there, and have like this really nice space that people can come in and access, get relief from the heat. So we're still hitting, some of those resiliency points that we had for our original project. This space, again, it's very close to the river. There's likely wetlands on that site, so we want to do that and bring this group in intentionally to make sure that we're protecting the resource, but still like allowing this nice community asset as well.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Where did you say it was again? At 57?
67.
67.
67.
I can bring it up.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting.
We just took it the last town meeting and taxed it. I think it was donated to the town. Yeah, tax taking takes years. They donate it, we can accept it the next town meeting.
It's down near the intersection,
I'll show
right?
you the area.
Near the treatment plant, right?
So the parking,
I don't have
that's
Yep.
the old part? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that's where we planned the original project.
Yeah.
It's this area right here.
Is that where there's a for sale sign up?
No, the for sale sign is right there.
On the right.
Oh, okay, okay, duh. It's on the other side of the road.
This
No.
area, and it's on both sides of Gilboa.
Oh, cool.
This is a beautiful area back here.
Yeah.
One thing you might not know is the mill ran on the water at one time. That is the canal right there, that little strip.
Yeah, I see that all the time.
Continues, we found where it actually enters, the river flows, this is kind of not realistic, the river flows through here.
True, yeah.
And it's water, and we can see where the entrance point for this canal is, because as the water level drops, the canal level stays level at the mills. You could have educational signs along this.
I do know, because I drive by it every day, and I always, the other day I actually noticed like the little outlet for that,
Yes.
that little piece right there. So yeah.
It's just beautiful.
This
back
makes me
there.
so excited.
Where is the treatment plant? Isn't the treatment plant on this side of it?
Yeah. Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Remember earlier I was like, I want to talk about educational signage?
Don't look at that.
We're talking
Perfect
about it.
opportunity.
Amazing.
We heard you.
Yeah, apparently.
So that's a vision right now that we could actually get something going. We have some grant money potentially helping us, so it's. I think we're heading in the right direction on this.
Yeah.
Do we know what's in our budget? What we've spent already this year?
Not much as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, I think we just did a 1,000 or 2,000, a couple thousand for, was
Education.
it the open space?
And then I've attended one or two of the conferences.
Yeah,
One
but-
was in 2025.
So maybe we can,
Is your budget out, as the agent, is that out of our budget? Is your,
That's separate.
so we got like 12 grand, I think, for our budget.
oh, did,
Yeah, you know me. No,
oh, Josiah was saying 5.
Josiah, the only one, and I was like,
Okay.
you go for.
Yeah, I think that would be such a fantastic, is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, like donate something or like some funds to go towards the signage or seats or benches or whatever.
When we get to that point.
Yeah.
June 30th is fiscal.
Yep.
You lose it, you use it, or lose it.
Yep.
We can talk about
We can always.
signage elsewhere too, and
You
maybe
could always buy
there's-
benches and just store them for a while.
Yeah, true.
Well, I mean, as long as we, donate the money right
Oh, yeah.
then it can sit in there,
I don't know what we would donate it.
Yeah, they don't have anything, yeah.
or then just buy what you need. Yeah. So.
I think we'll figure
We could
something
talk
out.
about that
Yeah.
next meeting. Right now, it's just, we're trying to just let you know what's coming
Yeah.
down the road.
Sounds good though.
Yeah, I mean, we have trail systems from the state, but we don't have parking. Look at the causeway. They've got 4 spaces. Once they're taken up on both sides of the road, it's a one-lane road.
Yeah.
We have a parking lot that can take care of our town trail system. Put some food trucks out there, and I mean, it will
Well,
attract.
Smashburger was out there. They moved though
There's
to
also
somewhere
a
else.
wiener one now.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, I saw the other day. Oh, I forget what it's called.
Wacky.
Wacky weed.
I just, it was near the,
I feel wrong saying that in a town meeting, but by the
the goodness store.
Yeah,
I was there today. I drove by it.
I'm not touching that.
not even with a 10-foot.
So that's it in a nutshell, it's that parcel. We're looking at the other parcel, 45.1. If you click on it, Sam, I think you can
Yeah,
highlight
that's
it.
this one, it doesn't highlight on the mass mapper.
Oh,
Let me
it doesn't?
take away Ariel, it's this one, right?
Yeah, it's that one. That's got some history to it, but it would solve a lot of problems if we could cut through it. As you see, it's all wetlands, but if you could hug the shoreline, it's not considered a wetland, even though it's within the riverfront. But trail systems are kind of like exempt for something like that, so. The more we dive into it, the more we'll find out about this stuff.
Okay.
But it's a perfect area to, at least on that end of the town, and then we're working on the property on Mechanic Street. I call it the bookends. We'll fill in the middle with a 2-mile trail system, similar to what Putnam has at some point in time. That's my vision. So that's it on that subject. You have anything to add?
No, so again, it's very early on. We're hoping to host a community listening session on April 28th. It's a Tuesday. I think it's at 6:30. It'll be in here. It's going to be a much sort of bigger presentation on the project, sort of how we got here and sort of the history of the MVP planning process. Hopefully some history of the site as well. And then we'll have some boards, some other materials up so that folks can share ideas about what amenities folks might want there or educational programming that might be helpful to have there. And then eventually we'll host some follow-up sessions to really look at a design more of that site. And again, we'd love to have you guys participate in it, especially if there's any like no-touch zones in there that we want to protect. Prime habitat that we want to protect, so we can sort of vision around that and, maybe even feature it with some educational signage.
Sam, do you have any concerns based on just looking at the map?
The only thing for me is there's obviously a lot of wetlands here. We've got Gilboa Pond, we've got the river going through, so a lot of wetlands associated with that. So, having those clearly defined is, number one, having them clearly defined. And then when the time comes, they're going to have to show what their impacts are. But again, I'm going to talk to Brandon a little bit more about, well, there's minor activities in the buffer zone, but as far as if you're gonna, I'm assuming it's gonna be boardwalks in some areas, maybe.
Just to get across the wetland, because
Yeah.
you don't want to fill it.
Yeah, so, but, those boardwalks are gonna have footings in and of themselves, so that's gonna be impacts. A lot of times with boardwalks, we look at, are your slats large enough between the boards to allow light to come through, especially if you're going through a BVW itself. You wanna make sure they're high enough off the ground, the slats are large enough to allow light to continue to come through, so you're not, creating more disturbance in the wetlands. So that's something we look at a lot of the times too. So, yeah, just quantifying, what's on the site, where the wetlands are, and then when the time comes, where your boardwalks are going. We look to see that you're trying to your best to avoid direct impacts to BVW. It may be inevitable on this site, but then you're going to have to quantify the impacts, and then, based off that, again, I want to talk to Brandon a little bit more, but if it is a lot of impact to BVW, you may have to do some type of replication area somewhere else on the site. It should be within, that same wetland system. If you had, it's just something to think about. If you have like an upland area somewhere, once you do get the wetlands delineated and you say, okay, this looks like a good area that I could do a replication area. So just, that's something that could go into it as well, just depending upon the impacts that you're going to have to the resource areas. And then you got to think about riverfront area as well. So there's, our whole regulations with riverfront area, work you're able to do within riverfront area. But again, I want to talk to Brandon about, there may be minor things that you're allowed to do versus not. But yeah, that's kind of my initial thoughts on it. Cool. So.
Sam ruins everything.
Sorry, I'm trying to keep you guys.
If you've been to Northbridge, they just built a huge trail system with the boardwalk.
Beautiful.
And that one, that was built pretty sturdy. It supported a mini excavator, because they built it out. We don't envision anything that complicated. But they used all their opera funds to pay for it. We used our ARPA funds for a water line out here and other projects in town. So our budget is not what Northbridge has.
I'll just raise tax. I'm joking.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
But this is in the planning stage right now. And what day is
April 28th?
Tuesday.
Yeah, we took a lot of photos today, so we'll have photos. It's paradise back there. And once you get past the roadway, the steep slope, and all those bushes and vines.
It's always near the roads.
Yeah.
The worst stuff grows near the roads.
It's actual paradise back. Just pine needles, no underbrush, no nothing.
Yeah. We got in far enough that you couldn't even hear the road anymore.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
They could set up a hammock back there.
Maybe we do.
All right, so there's no questions on that. Do you want to bring my topic under 48 hours in advance?
Sure. Go for it.
I don't know if you already brought it up to them, but the Open Space Committee might also be really interested in, and they do their own trails and stuff too.
Yeah, we plan on announcing this, but this is a good forum to make an official announcement.
All right. What's your topic, sir?
Topic is mitigation, 12 trees mitigation from the retaining wall on Depot Street, that project. I'm working with Bob Sullivan in the Water Sewer Department, his project, and Adam Fernald, the Highway Superintendent. Originally, we proposed planting 12 trees, some behind the building here, which we can't find a spot. So now all 12 migrated down to the old fire station on Cottage Street. That property is small. There is no way you could put 12 trees on there, even if there were no trees right now.
That is small, yeah.
It's a wooden building. The wooden gutters are already in desperate need of repair. The last thing we want to do is put more shade on a wooden building.
Yeah.
And so all I'm asking is, and I talked to Brandon last week on this, I don't know if he briefed you, Sam, but I did touch base with Brandon that we could plant some trees at the water sewer treatment plant. It's within the riverfront area. We could also plant some maples along the parking lot, Gilboa parking lot, clean up the shrub, the scrub that's along the bank. If you look at the new Q's building, there's, in that direction, there's about maybe half a dozen pine trees. They would stay because they're nice, but the bare areas, you could plant some maples. In our specs for that building was 6 oaks, 6 maples. We might be coming back to you for asking for a different ratio, not 6 and 6, might be 8 and 4, might be 10 and 2. The oaks would go good down at the Cottage Street plant site. The sewer treatment plant would probably prefer maples as opposed to oaks.
Yep.
And maples can only grow next to water. So you don't want oaks down at the parking lot. So that's why we might have more maples than oaks. So the ratio might change, but we're still going to 12.
Which I think is okay. When I'm looking at the special conditions that you guys have, no, they didn't specify the types of trees.
It's in the specs,
Okay,
that we
it is,
bid the
okay.
specs, which might not concern you because that's not in the order of conditions.
Yeah, it wasn't specified in the special conditions. It just says the planting locations of the 12 trees,
To be
mitigation
determined.
trees are to be field approved by the commission's agent. So yeah, okay. So
And
you're
I
saying
have to
that,
walk
yeah.
with Brandon on that, and I already started the conversation with him.
Yep, that's fine.
Make sure he writes it down if this is changed.
I think what we presented to you was 12 trees at the firehouse. And you know, we want to plant trees to make them live.
Yeah, not just to plant them on, yeah.
Because they're crowded and they can't establish a good root structure. I mean, the intent is to plant 12 trees that we will see in 20, 30, 50 years from now.
Yeah, I don't see that being any issue.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
when the time comes, we could write a memo for them just to have it on record, but, yeah.
That would be the ideal thing. 2 go here, 2 go there, 8 go over there, and the types.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I like it in writing. As you guys found out. Yeah, I was probably asleep back there.
I'm excited for April
So
28th.
that's all I have. Thank you for your extension.
You bet.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too. Be safe.
Sorry we've been harboring you.
All right, Kate. Are we ready to fly through those real quick?
Oh, yeah, I think last time, what did we do? We just said we're,
No, we have to do them individually.
I can't tell if you're joking.
Yeah, you do. Each, for the minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do, individually.
Oh, we
Like for
do?
each, the specific note, which you guys did last.
Oh, no, but I don't need to like read the edits.
Oh,
I'm just reading like, okay, yeah. We only have one anyway.
Specific, then,
Okay,
but yeah.
no, we only have one, so we're good.
All right.
I know.
Good night.
Thank you.
Can I just make the motion, or you guys? I'm gonna make the motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as amended for Monday, March 2nd, 2026.
Second.
I have a motion for the meeting minutes for March 2nd, 2026 as amended by Kate and second by Mike. Do a roll call.
I abstain, I wasn't here.
Oh, can we even prove them?
There's 3 of us, so yes.
Beautiful. Kate Rowland, aye.
He said, what?
He wasn't here for that meeting, so he can't approve, so the 3 of us can approve it, though. The amendment for March 2nd.
For the meeting minutes.
Oh. But we can.
Yes.
Yes, provided you say yes. Provided you say approved.
Yes.
Okay. And Jim Four and I,
That's it.
that's it. Anything else? Does anyone else?
We don't need to talk about it today.
Oh, are you sure?
Yeah, I paused it. Yeah.
Okay. Then does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to end the meeting,
Adjourn.
adjourn the meeting.
All right, Brendan made a motion to close the meeting and Mike seconded it. Roll call, please.
Brendan Doyle, aye.
Kate Rowland, aye.
Or go I.
Jim Four and I. Good night, everyone.